Louisiana teaches you to trust water you cannot see into. You back the trailer down the ramp without reading the bank and let the kids swing off the rope into bayou water the color of coffee with milk, never once thinking about what's holding still 6 feet down where the light stops. It isn't carelessness, it's a kind of treaty the whole state has signed, that the wild things all live somewhere else. Out past the last camp in water, nobody swims. But nothing in the swamp ever signed it, and the people living closest to that water are the ones who've trained themselves hardest not to see what's in it. Today we're counting down 10 animals living in these swamps in numbers most locals would refuse to believe, ranked by how completely the people sharing that water have agreed not to look at it. If a story like this keeps turning over in your head after dark, take a second to subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel, and drop the parish, state, or country you're watching from in the comments. Number 10. The nutria, the rat that got too big. Something is swimming across the canal at dusk, cutting a slow V through the duckweed, and your first thought is beaver, until you pull it closer and the story falls apart. The tail is round and scaly like a possum's, the front teeth behind that fat, whiskered face are a bright, unnatural orange, and the whole animal is the size of a small dog. That's a nutria, a South American rodent that was never supposed to set foot on this continent at all. How it got here is half legend, half fur trade bookkeeping. Nutria were brought into the Louisiana marsh in the 1930s to be farmed for their pelts, and legend has some of them escaping a pen on Avery Island, the island that makes the hot sauce, during a storm. When the fur market collapsed, the nutria didn't. They chewed out into the wetlands, and a few thousand became a plague of millions. Today, the state pays a bounty on their tails, a few dollars each. Hundreds of thousands turned in during a strong year, because they're quietly eating Louisiana out from under itself. Here's the danger nobody pictures. A nutria doesn't nibble the tops of the marsh grass. It digs down and rips out the roots, and once the roots are gone, the soft coastal soil has nothing left to grip. Whole islands of marsh unravel into open water. In a state already losing a football field of wetland roughly every hour and a half, the gentle thing paddling past your dock is doing more to erase the land than most hurricanes, and it carries more than teeth. Nutria can host a parasite that leaves swimmers with a maddening, blistering rash, so the bayou it fouls is the same bayou your kids cannonball into. And where the marsh dissolves, the salt creeps inland and kills the cypress, so the loss feeds on itself. Number 10 isn't a predator at all. It's the reminder that in this swamp, dangerous doesn't always mean fangs. Sometimes it means the ground itself going out from under you. Number 9. The fire ant. Now the animal you've already been stung by, that turns into something else entirely the moment the water rises. On an ordinary day, the red imported fire ant is just the mound you steer the mower around, the burning welt on your ankle you curse and forget. But Louisiana floods, hurricanes, spring rain, a river over its banks, and when that water climbs up into a fire ant colony, the ants do something that looks like a magic trick and behaves like a nightmare. Tens of thousands of them link their legs and clamp together into a single living raft. The queen and the brood tucked safe in the middle, and the whole colony floats, a slick reddish-brown mat riding the current, sometimes the size of a dinner plate, sometimes wide as a manhole cover, drifting straight toward the higher ground people are waiting for. Brush that raft with a boat, a paddle, a leg, and it doesn't scatter. It climbs aboard. The ants swarm up whatever touched them and sting in coordinated waves, each ant able to sting over and over, driving a venom that burns and, for the unlucky share of people who react hard to it, can slam the body into anaphylaxis all at once, in a place where the roads are underwater and the ambulance can't get through. A raft like that can hold together for days without breaking apart, and it doesn't drift blindly. It catches on anything solid it touches, which in a flooded neighborhood means fence posts, mailboxes, porch rails, and the arms and legs of the people clinging to them. Every major Louisiana flood produces the same photographs and the same disbelief. Rescue boats hauling families out of water that is already carpeted with these things. The fire ant makes this list because it corrupts the one instinct a flood is supposed to give you: get to the open water, get to the channel out, and turns the surface you're trying to reach into the thing you have to watch. Number 8. The cottonmouth. And now the water itself starts looking back. Most snakes near a Louisiana bayou are harmless. Ribbon snakes, banded water snakes, the innocent ones that get killed by the dozen out of pure reflex. But one dark, thick-bodied snake in that same water is not bluffing about anything. The cottonmouth, the water moccasin, lives across the entire southern half of the state. The cypress swamp, The roadside ditch, the rim of the crawfish pond, the exact slow water people back into to cool off in July. What sets the cottonmouth apart is that it doesn't always leave. Where a harmless water snake pours off the log and vanishes, a cornered cottonmouth will plant itself, throw its head back, and gape, flashing the pale cotton-white lining of its mouth that gave it its name. It's a warning almost nobody has ever been close enough to earn. The venom is hemotoxic. It kills tissue and breaks down blood, and a solid bite is a hospital and a long recovery. Not a bad afternoon. There's a piece of Louisiana lore that cottonmouths chase swimmers down the bank. They don't. That's fear rewriting a snake only trying to reach the same shade you were standing in. But the myth does its own damage. It makes people feel foolish for watching, so they stop. And the young ones are sneakiest of all. A juvenile cottonmouth wiggles a bright yellow-green tail tip like a lure to draw frogs in close, coiled in the shallows exactly where a bare foot goes looking for cool mud. The denial around this one lives in a single lazy phrase: probably nothing. Every dark coil on a low branch over the water gets waved off as a stick or just a rat snake, because looking closely enough to be certain would change the whole feeling of the swim. And the moccasin understands the value of stillness better than you do. It's basking on the same fallen log the rope swing is knotted around, and it decided, long before you ever waited out, that it was here first. Number 7. The alligator snapping turtle. This one has been sitting on the bottom of your fishing hole, disguised as a rock, since before you were born. Forget the little snapper that hisses at you on the roadside. Louisiana is the heartland of its monstrous cousin, the alligator snapping turtle, the largest freshwater turtle in North America, an animal that can push past 150 pounds and wear a spiked, moss-grown shell like a chunk of the riverbed that decided to grow ahead. Some of them out there are older than the fishermen chasing them. This is a creature that can live the better part of a century in the same stretch of mud. It hunts by doing absolutely nothing. The alligator snapper lies on the bottom with its mouth open, and on the floor of that mouth sits a small pink appendage. It wiggles like a worm. Fish drift in to take the bait, and the jaws come down, fast and hard enough that this is not an animal you test with a finger. There's a whole tangle of Cajun folklore about that bite snapping through broom handles and bone. Most of it is exaggeration, but the truth underneath it is plenty. It can take the shrimp, the bream, and the careless hand that reaches under a submerged log to work a snagged line free. The lure itself is a small blood-pink flick of flesh, and the turtle can hold that open-mouthed pose for hours, algae greening the shell until it disappears into the riverbed. The biggest on record have topped 200 pounds, a shell as wide as a trash can lid, and a head too large to pull all the way inside. Here's the part that sits wrong. You have almost certainly swum, paddled, or waded directly above one and never had the faintest idea, because its entire life is built around being indistinguishable from the bottom. It doesn't chase you. It doesn't surface to make a point. It waits, breathing maybe once an hour, patient as the swamp itself. Number 7 isn't frightening because it comes for you. It's frightening because it never has to. Number 6, the feral hog, the one Louisiana cannot kill fast enough. There are well over 500,000 feral hogs in this state, and the number climbs no matter what anyone throws at it, because a single sow can raise 2 litters a year, and the swamp is a nearly perfect place to disappear into. These are not the pink animals of a children's book. A mature boar can pass 200 pounds, armored in gristle, tusked, and, unlike almost every other large animal in these bottoms, willing to stop, turn, and come at you. They move at night, in groups called sounders, and they cover ground with ugly speed, tearing up levees, sugarcane, marsh, and even cemeteries with the same blunt appetite. The damage across Louisiana runs into the tens of millions of dollars a year, and every count says it's getting worse. But the hog earns a place on a list about danger, not just nuisance, because of temperament. A cornered boar, a sow with piglets, a hog already wounded by a trap. These will charge, those tusks sharpen themselves against each other every time the jaw moves, and a person on foot in dark bottomland is simply not built to win that exchange. And the tusks aren't even the whole threat. Feral hogs are walking reservoirs of disease. They can carry pathogens that pass to livestock, pets, and people, and they foul the water and the ground wherever a sounder roots through. As the swamp gets carved into new neighborhoods, the hogs don't retreat. They simply add the subdivisions to their range, drawn in at night to watered lawns, garden beds, and the deer corn somebody left out back. And a startled sounder will run straight through whatever happens to be standing in its way. The denial here is a filing error. People slot the feral hog under farm problem, a thing for trappers and helicopters and somebody else's back 40. What they don't picture is the animal itself, standing in the trail at 2 in the morning, entirely unbothered, working out whether you're worth the trouble. We're right at the halfway mark. And if you're still in the boat with me, you're clearly someone who actually wants to know what's down there in the dark water. So if you haven't yet, this is the moment to hit subscribe, because from here up, these are the animals people flat out refuse to believe are real. Number 5. The alligator gar. And this one, I need you to unlearn something first. If you grew up anywhere on the Gulf, you were probably raised on the idea that the alligator gar is a monster, a man-eater, a thing that drags dogs off the bank into the shallows. Almost none of that is true. What is true is stranger. The alligator gar is one of the largest freshwater fish on the continent, a living animal that can exceed 8 feet and 300 pounds, armored head to tail and interlocking diamond-shaped scales so hard that early settlers used them as arrowheads, and a knife blade will skip off them. It carries a long snout full of teeth and a bloodline that runs back alongside the dinosaurs, almost unchanged, gulping air at the surface through a primitive lung on the dead still days when the swamp water goes low on oxygen. So why is it on a list about danger? 2 reasons, and neither is the one the legend sells you. First, an 8-foot fish thrashing on a line beside a small aluminum boat is a genuine hazard by pure mass and muscle. People have been cut and knocked down hauling them in. Second, and this catches everyone off guard, the meat is perfectly good to eat, but the eggs are toxic to humans, poisonous enough to make a grown person violently ill, and cooking doesn't undo it, so there's no antidote but to ride it out. And these are not short-lived fish. A big female can be older than the angler holding her, with some in Texas aged well past 90. So, the animal Louisiana spent a century calling a river monster, and killing on sight turns out to be an ancient, mostly harmless giant that only hurts you if you corner it, or eat the one part of it you shouldn't. Number 5 isn't here for the danger you were told about. It's here for a rarer kind, the danger of an animal we chose to fear for all the wrong reasons, and never once bothered to actually understand. Number 4. The bull shark. Number 4 broke the one rule you were counting on it to keep. Everyone accepts sharks in the Gulf. That's the bargain you make with salt water. What almost nobody in Louisiana lets themselves sit with is that one shark refuses to stay in the Gulf at all. The bull shark can regulate the salt in its own body, and that single biological trick lets it swim straight out of the ocean and up into fresh, brown inland water where no one on Earth is watching for a shark, and it comes far in. Bull sharks are a documented recurring presence in Lake Pontchartrain, the vast brackish lake New Orleans is built against, where people swim, ski, and fish all summer. They pass through the rigolettes on the tide, and they push up the Mississippi itself. There are records of bull sharks taken hundreds of miles upriver, well past anywhere a person would ever expect to meet one. The females reach around 11 feet and several hundred pounds, and they use the low-salt river mouths and estuaries as nurseries. So it isn't only the big ones you'd have to worry about, it's the young ones, growing up in the exact same water as everyone's July. The most inland shark ever recorded in the country was a bull, turned up in the Mississippi near Alton, Illinois, more than 1,000 river miles from saltwater. And bulls sit among the handful of shark species most often blamed for attacks on people, precisely because they favor the shallow, murky, close-to-shore water where people wade. This is the denial that costs the most, because it's held with the most confidence. The man wade fishing a coastal river at dusk, the family floating a tidal stretch on inner tubes 100 miles from any beach, they've told themselves the freshwater is a wall the ocean can't climb. To the bull shark, there is no wall. There's no line drawn on the water, no sign, no fence. The river isn't a refuge from the shark. It's just more of the shark's map. Number 3, the Louisiana black bear. Number 3 is the most beloved animal in America, and it lives in the Louisiana swamp, and it is a real 300-pound bear. Here's a connection almost nobody makes. The teddy bear, the toy sitting in half the cribs on the planet, traces straight back to a 1902 bear hunt in the lower Mississippi bottomlands, when President Theodore Roosevelt refused to shoot a bear that had been run down and tied up for him. A newspaper cartoon turned that into a legend. A Brooklyn shopkeeper turned the legend into a stuffed toy, and the bear at the center of it was this bear, the Louisiana black bear, a distinct subspecies that lives in the thick, tangled bottomland forests and cypress breaks of the state, and it very nearly didn't survive the century that named its toy. Logging stripped the bottomland and hunting cut the population down so far that in 1992 the Louisiana black bear was listed as a threatened species under federal protection. For decades, it clung on in a handful of river bottom strongholds. Then it did something almost nothing on the endangered list ever does. It came back. Habitat corridors were reconnected, the population rebuilt, and in 2016 the Louisiana black bear was officially removed from the list. More of them move through the swamp now than at any point in living memory. A black bear here is not a hunter of people, and it will nearly always choose to leave rather than fight. But an adult male can weigh 300 pounds. It's faster and stronger than anything that shape has a right to be, and like every bear alive, it learns. A bear that ties the smell of a fish camp, a deer feeder, or an unsecured dumpster to an easy meal loses its fear, and a bear without fear is a completely different animal in a place where people hunt and camp inside its cover. Number 3 is the softest icon we own, walking quietly back into the exact ground we once rode it out of. Number 2, the mosquito. Number 2 you will never see coming, because it's already landed on you. Long before there were highways or levees or pumping stations, the deadliest animal in Louisiana was the mosquito, and nothing else is close. 19th century New Orleans was a city that buried its dead by the thousands in its yellow fever summers. The epidemic of 1853 alone killed something on the order of 8,000 people in a single season, wagons hauling coffins through the streets, and the killer, though no one understood it yet, was the thin whine in the dark over the standing water. The whole city had been built inside a machine for breeding mosquitoes, and it paid the bill for 100 years. 25 years later, in 1878, the fever climbed the Mississippi Valley in one of the worst epidemics in American history, killing thousands more from New Orleans up to Memphis. Yellow fever is controlled now. The mosquito is not. The same standing water, the roadside ditch, the old tire, the bird bath, the flooded field behind the house, still breeds the carriers of West Nile virus, which Louisiana logs cases of nearly every year, and of eastern equine encephalitis, a rarer brain infection that kills around a third of those who fall seriously ill and leaves lasting neurological damage in many who survive. There are no fangs and no warning rattle here. A creature you could crush without even looking settles on the back of your neck at dusk, and weeks later, the danger isn't a wound you can point to. It's something moving in your blood. Every other animal on this list hides in the water or the timber. This one hides in plain sound, waved off as an annoyance, having killed more people across this state's history than every alligator, snake, and shark on this list combined. Number 2 is the smallest thing in the swamp, and by the only measure that has ever actually counted the dead, it's the one you should have feared the most. Number 1, the American alligator. And so, number 1, and of course it's the alligator, but not for the reason you'd expect. It's here not for being exotic, but because it's the animal Louisiana has most completely perfected the art of not seeing. There are an estimated 2 million wild alligators in this state, plus roughly 1 million more on farms. And that number does not live out in the swamp somewhere. It lives in the retention pond behind the shopping center, the golf course water hazard, the canal behind the subdivision, the bayou at the dead end of the street. Across the eastern two-thirds of Louisiana, essentially every stretch of fresh and brackish water is alligator water, and people jog, fish, and walk their dogs beside it the way a commuter steps over a subway grate. An adult male commonly passes 10 feet, an ambush hunter of unbelievable patience, motionless at the waterline for hours, invisible in dark water, striking in a fraction of a second. Attacks are rare, and that rarity is the trap. The denial isn't that the alligator is absent. Everyone knows it's there. It's the daily, load-bearing pretense that it doesn't matter, that the gator in the neighborhood lake is a fixture, a mascot, a photo op, practically a pet. And the most dangerous alligator on Earth is the one that has stopped being afraid of people, a fear it doesn't lose on its own. We manufacture it, one tossed marshmallow and one hand-fed camp gator at a time, in the water where children play. We didn't stop seeing the alligator because it learned to hide. We stopped because it never left, and looking straight at it would mean admitting how we've chosen to live on top of it. Number 1 is the purest version of this list. A true apex predator, half the state's water its territory, made invisible not by stealth but by familiarity. These are still some of the richest, most beautiful waters left on the continent, and they are worth every hour spent in the boat. But the flat brown surface of a Louisiana bayou tells you almost nothing about what's holding still beneath it, and it never has.